You talked about your father at home during the war, the time before the ghetto. I think that for him it was the biggest change, since he used to go to work, and you said that he worked from morning to from sunrise till dark.
He was also at night. He had there were partners in the mill, and there was a bookkeeper, but he was doing his own bookkeeping at night, parallel to the big bookkeeping in the business. And that saved him a lot of money.
So now when he had to stay home?
I really don't remember very much, because there was no more normal life when after the war. There was he became very mellow, very, I would say, kind of depressed. He was going to the synagogue. He just tried to kill time.
He became more religious, like people at that time that thought that maybe that will help them.
It was, the synagogue was at that time that people went to hear what's going on.
Social center.
The social center, yes.
And
also, except for the prayer.
You know, this time also, although it was a war already, at the beginning, let's say the first year, there was not normal life, but kind of routine still. So I understand that you still went to school.
Yeah, only until June 1940. Then not anymore.
So the first year of the war, you still went to school, and how did they treat you there at school?
Okay. There was not that I remember any hostilities against me.
You were the only Jew there?
My friend, the one that told me that they didn't accept her, she also came. I told her, look, they took me in common, maybe they would admit you too. The two of us in the same class.
And
it was all.
It didn't look very weird that in such times you have to sit and study and learn to the exams and all that?
I don't think the school was really that serious anymore. The school also, the exams were not that, the polls, that intellectual polls were suffering a lot. Also, they didn't identify with German, with the laws, with the restrictions. So actually, they were on our side.
You had hobbies before the war?
Not that I recall. Not in Ostroviecz. Just, I read a lot. I read maybe sometimes 3 books a week.
So you know, during the war, it's the best time to read, because especially at that age of 14, 15, 16, you can run away from reality by reading books.
Right.
And did you do that?
Right. I did it, yes.
Is it possible to really escape from the real life?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, I read good books. Gone with the Wind was one of them in 1940. I remember. Yes. couldn't stop reading it.
I think that the movie was in 39.
Well, I didn't see the movie.
Of course.
49.
And
But I read the book in January 1940. I remember it.
you read only in Polish.
Polish. Yeah.
And your older sister, your
I-
mother, your father, what did they do the whole time?
Yeah. Yes, we were. Well, I want to say something that escaped my mind.
About the books?
I was also going to the customers of my father. He was still, I think, still had some way of selling flour, and I was going to pick up the money or something on a bicycle. I was making trips.
Did your father have non-Jewish friends?
No, he had non-Jewish customers.
But none of them was really a friend, more than a customer.
One, I remember one was a friend that he had a son which was a professor in the high school for French, was teaching French. And we gave, in 1942, we gave lots of our household to him, that when we survive, should give it back, but it did not materialize. He didn't give us anything back.
Did you keep stuff with, I don't know, acquaintance or...
Well, with this man we gave
Besides
away.
him?
No.
He said that the Germans took it?
We left everything. We left our house in 1942. November 1942, we left our apartment.
But when you said that he didn't give you back anything after the war, that's because he said that the Germans took it, or what?
I didn't follow it up, but yeah, the German took it. He doesn't have any of it. That's what he said. And we gave it to him in 1942, before the big, how do you say, Aussiedlung? Aussiedlung.
It's a kind of, not a permit, but...
No, Aussiedlung is when this big action was that they took everybody from Congress Poland. It was the Jews were taken in big numbers to Treblinka.
You mean Judenrein and things like that?
That happened
yeah.
at the end of 1942.
Yeah. But I just want, before we get to 42, when you are still at home, I understand that you are going out, you're not sitting the whole day at home.
No.
First you go to school, and then you said you went to collect debts and things like that, and you also go to visit friends, relatives.
Right. But that was all in the ghetto already.
Yeah, but everyone did that? Or only you were independent enough to go outside? Because to school you had to go out of the ghetto, and to collect the money you had to go out of the ghetto.
Yeah, that was only me, yes. I was courageous. I also was going out of the labor camp, which was in the city that we lived, next to the factory that we worked for. Was going out. Sometimes we had with this Polish friend, we had some, I told you we were buying for the money that we had some goods, some textiles and things, that I would go out and I would try to sell something, and so that I collect some money for it.
You went with the yellow star.
I took it off. I took off the yellow star, and you have a picture here. The one that was my civil marriage in Berlin, and I am wearing a jacket, and this jacket has a fair color. And this jacket, I worked at a place where I was after 1942, I think in 43, for the Volksdeutsch in a sewing, in a, how do you say, Schneiderei.
Yeah.
A place.
Yeah.
And
but before that you couldn't wear it because Jews weren't able to wear fair.
That's why this guy that worked there, he had a piece of hair, and he brought it for me, and he put it on this jacket, and I used this jacket when I was going out on the Gentile, on the Aryan side of the ghetto, outside of the ghetto. So this was like proof that I am not Jewish.
Yeah, because
and
no Jew could
I still had it.
I
don't know how I had it after the war, that I had this jacket. I cannot comprehend now.
Because you went through Auschwitz, and there, of course,
I didn't take it to
it.
Auschwitz. No, I gave it away. I gave it away probably to keep, and I got it back. But I don't remember who I gave it away. But that was the jacket, that was my passport for out of the ghetto.
And as we said before, you didn't have a especially Jewish look, and your accent was good. So if people didn't know you before, they didn't think that you are Jewish.
Probably not. I had also at one point, well, I don't know if this is not skipping, because 1942, before November 1942, we all were trying to have a place to work, but I didn't have it. My father had one place to work. I don't know if I should already tell you the story how I survived the 1942 November.
Okay, we'll reach there in a few minutes. During the ghetto, you remember life at home? Did you still try to have the holidays and things like that?
Yes. We had Pesach.
With matzot and everything that was before in Pesach?
Yeah. And yes, as a matter of fact, the Aussiedlung, what I spoke about it before, was on the last day of Sukkot. We had the holiday.
You're talking about the final solution, what we call
final solution. That we were 16,000 Jews in this city, and we remained only 2,000 on the two places where they worked.
And during the whole time of the ghetto, you weren't hungry?
No.
Well, was still enough
I
food
had
at
a
home.
Tremendous appetite at this time. I was 16, and I was I developed like at the age of 15, a late bloomer. I was almost 15, and that was the time that I never, after a dinner, I still had to eat bread to feel that I'm satisfied. We were not hungry, no. My mother managed to cook every day dinner. And
before the war, you were spoiled with food?
Yes.
And during the ghetto? You ate things that you didn't eat
during
before?
the ghetto, as I told you, we lost a lot of money. Money that became nothing, that became just paper. And what we had on things to be sold and to be made into money, we also were trying to keep it for a longer time. So we were also trying not to spend too much. But my mother baked her own bread. And my mother managed so that we had enough food in the house. But it was thanks to her, because...
During that time, your mother was more dominant than your father in the ghetto?
No. She was not a dominant person. She was a giver.
And in time of war, you were 4 sisters, 4 girls.
Yeah.
Fighting, quarreling, things that usually happen between sisters, especially at that age. In the ghetto also?
During the war, I was teaching my 2 small sisters, the one that was 5 years younger than me.
What was her name?
Rivka. And the little one that was supposed to go to school at the age of 39, at the year of 39.
What was her name?
Pardon?
Her name?
Ida. So I was teaching them and I was very good with them, but my older sister was not, she didn't like me. So she was kind of, when I took something of her dress or blouse, or she was very, very angry with me. She was very much to herself, just to herself.
So
things in her.
With your older sister, you had normal relationship?
Very good relationship. Very good relationship.
But
very
no,
loving.
but I mean normal that you yelled at each other and everything that happens in that age. And with your younger sisters, maybe it changed a little bit because of the circumstances.
The sister that perished, I told you how it happened. It was 49 in November.
49?
42 November. She was a lovely girl. She was a very, very kind and very...
How old was she in 42?
She must have been... in 42, I was 17. She was 12.
She was born in 30.
She was 12, yeah. She was 12.
Did they used to celebrate bat mitzvah for you, your sisters?
No, I don't remember that we were celebrating bat mitzvah. I don't think it was the custom for girls to have
because
bat mitzvah.
Because you said she was 12, so I remember.
Yeah, no,
12
I don't think during the war, before the war, was a custom. Boys had bat mitzvah, but girls did not have bat mitzvah. That was something with a Frauenbewegung.
So we said that during the ghetto, it wasn't good, of course, but relatively you managed okay. Your father could make a little bit of business from time to time, and you had enough food on the table and clothes and.
Well, clothes was not an issue. We didn't buy new clothes. We had clothes,
but you could manage.
Yeah.
And especially you had shoes.
Right.
And then 42.
Well, 42, my father had to have a job. He was working, there was a firm, Elite, I don't know what's called. There was a guy, his name was Winter, and he was making roads. And he was getting a few hundred, 200 or 300 Jews. He had a German Jewish guy that was giving him money for every Jew that he was taking, because that saved his life. So he worked there, and he was going there in the morning and came back at night. And it was, I think, the beginning of 1942.
How old was your father at that time?
My father was born in 98, September 98. So that was 42, so he was 44 years old. It seemed to us that he was an old man.
You remember him as an old man at that time?
Also, my mother, after the war, she must have been 43. I also thought she was old. And but my mother could not have. My sister was in 1940. She was also, as I told you, was in Radom buying some things for the money that we had cash.
She went till Radom?
Yeah. With
but also without a yellow star, I suppose, because Jews couldn't go by train.
No, but maybe it was 1940. Maybe she could go without the star. But they lived there. We had a couple in our apartment that the Judenrat gave us, that they should live with us, because they came many refugees from the German part of Poland that the German annexed. So we had
that they expelled to Zbonchin.
Yeah, we had in our apartment a couple from Lodz. Before we had a couple with three people with the mother, a couple and the mother from Konin. From in the area from Posen. Life became very difficult, because to have strangers, we didn't have such a huge apartment. We had in the living room. It was a big living room, so we had and one couch and another couch and a bed and so forth. What was I supposed to say?
About your sister, that she went to Radom.
Yeah. And in 1942, there was the Aussiedlung in Radom before it happened in Ostroviecz. So the boy that she met there, and she was supposed to get married to him, sent a Volksdeutsche, a Pole who was partly German. And he picked her up, and she went to Radom. My mother did not have a place to work, because she had two children. She had one girl of 12 and one girl. And I had a Polish Kennkartę.
The permit to work.
Yeah, not the permit to work, my identification, an ID that I am Gentile. And
you had a Gentile Kennkartę?
Yeah. And
how did
false.
Yeah, but how did you receive it?
There were people that you gave money to, and they gave it to you. Gave them a picture. I don't know how, but
it was with a picture?
With a picture, yes, with my picture. And I named myself, because I was Silberberg. I named myself Polish Srebrnogórska, idiot. I mean, it was stupid of me to just change the name to it. I had this card, and I thought that I will go to Radom before the Aussiedlung. I will leave the city, and because over there it was already quiet. And that was a big adventure. It started the night before the Aussiedlung. We knew already that at 5 o'clock we will be surrounded, and we would have to be on the Platz on the square where. And I thought, well, now, so I went to neighbors of ours. I told you that we lived in the last house which belonged to the ghetto on the other side. And there were two policemen, Polish policemen there. And my mother was friendly with their wives because it used to be that peasants were coming into the city to sell
Products.
butter and all the products that peasants have and blueberries and raspberries and so forth. And they were standing on the road, so those wives of the policemen also were standing. So they were friends. So I thought I will go to one of the houses there, and they have a big son, and he will bring me to the train, because I was courageous, but I was afraid to go out on my own, by myself. And this boy, I met him after the war in 1945. He told me that there was a gathering from the AK, from the ones that were murdering Jews after
The Polish underground.
Polish underground. And they told him that he should get me there to the train, and they would, the German would. Anyways, he said no. So I met the policeman from the other side of the street. I mean, vis-a-vis. And he said, yes, I should come to the house, and he will hide me on the attic. I went in. It was 1 o'clock at night. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. It was like the last hours. My mother with the two children, they hid on an attic. Many people hid on attics. Many people they took them out and they sent them away. But my mother with the two children, they were with one only. They were lucky, they didn't find them. There were many Jews on this attic and they didn't find them. So I went with this policeman. This policeman said, I said something to him. I was asking him something. He said, be quiet. My wife should not hear you. Then I got scared. I knew what's going on. And I said, no, thank you. And I left. He probably would take me on the attic. Maybe he would rape me and then send me to the plaza to be shipped off to Treblinka. But then I saw a big truck in front of the Judenrat. The Judenrat was the second house of ours.
Before you continue, at that time you already knew about Treblinka, Auschwitz, I mean about the camps and what's going on
We didn't
there?
know. I don't think we knew Treblinka by the name.
Not the name, but that there is something like that.
Yeah, they sent people away, maybe to be killed. Maybe, not for sure. But there was, we were afraid, we were thinking of doing something to save our lives. So probably we knew that we are in big danger.
So you saw that truck near the Judenrat?
I saw this truck next to the Judenrat, and a cousin of my mother, he was the chief of the police. And his wife, with a little girl of 2, was also on this truck. And they were going to this place where my father was working for. Bodzechov was the name. And
what was the name?
Bodzechov. About 10 kilometers from Ostroviecz. And I saw on the truck the wife of the president of the Judenrat. I saw all the VIPs from the ghetto, all the very important people, or the very wealthy ones. And and I thought I will go to Bodzechov, and I go there to the train, and I will go with my
to meet
my
your
gender
sister.
identity card to Radom.
At that time, your older sister was in Radom.
Right. But I think this was just of pushing it ahead, that I don't have to go on the Aryan side by myself. I just was looking for one more step to do before I do the final thing. So I got this cousin of mine put me on this truck, this chief of police, because this guy that I told you, his name was Kerbel, that he was working for this German guy, he was taking money for the jobs, for the people that went there. Either they were the one in the Judenrat, that they were very important, or the others which were not, they were rich and they gave him money.
So you're talking about the boss of your father?
The boss of my father, yeah, at the time, right.
And your father asked him?
No, my father went already to this place hours before. My mother packed the food for him, which was the last day of Sukkot. They were called chicken, challah, and all this, and he went.
And your mother with your two younger sisters were to the attic because you knew that there's going to be an akция.
5 o'clock in the morning, this chairman of the police, of the Jewish police, told us. And he told us that he's sending his wife to Botzechuf. And from there, and there are 6 or some wives of the big shots that have permission from the SS that they can have children, and they are being protected because they are the wives of big shots. I went on this tract, and the Kerbel saw me and nobody, and he said I should go down. But this Blumenfeld, what I told you, the cousin of my mother, he said, well, she's my cousin, I wanted to be there. Okay. So this was like 3 o'clock in the morning. We went to Botzechuf. We were standing, many people in a place, and this wife of my cousin, and she was the cousin actually to my mother, she said, Salah, you cannot be here because you have to, we have all permission to be here. When they come, they will take you away. So I said, well, I'm waiting. I want to go to the train station and I want to go to Radom. Then I went to look for my father. So it was a big, big yard. I had to go, there was barracks. I had to go on the other side, and I looked for my father. My father was in the barracks for men. My father took out the whole thing that he had and was telling me to eat. But on the way back from my father to go to the women's place, the women's houses, there was a truck again. And all those people that I came with, those very important people, also the wife with 2 small children from Kerbel, from this boss, were on this truck. As I told you, I looked for the next step to make, not to be committed to go to the train, because I probably was afraid. I went on this truck, and this people that were around Kerbel, that were his helpers.
Kerbel was his name?
Kerbel was his name. He was a very anyways. They told me I don't belong here. I didn't give any money, and I was not important. And so I went down, and there was a German guy who was in charge of this transport. And he saw me that I went down. He said, look, you go up. you want to go, we go to Annopol. It was not far from Lublin. It was about 200-300 kilometers. And we were going to the woods. This truck was going to woods, and they were barracks, like they are working, building those barracks. And we were actually living in the woods. And this guy, this German guy, told me, and he said, well, you go up there. I don't know what thoughts he had. Then there's this secretary of Kerbel, he said, well, she doesn't belong here. And he said, no, she does. I wanted to go there. I wanted to go to Annopol. So I was already in Annopol. That we had very good. Peasants were coming with food to sell to us. We were in a barrack that we slept on the floor with a little straw. Wives with husbands together, well, next to each other, and the ones that were alone slept next to the woman. Well, it was like 50 people in one room on the floor. And during the day we were in the woods. The air was beautiful, and we had food. And
in Annopol?
Annopol.
Annopol?
Annopol. Annopol, not far from Lublin, away. But 2 weeks later, or less than 2 weeks, Kerbel came himself to this place. He took his wife with the children back to Bodzachów. It was already safe. And I didn't show up to him because I knew that in order that I could stay, I would have to give him some money. I had money on myself. I had sewn into the underpants of some girl or something.
But you knew you needed to stay in Radom.
No, it's not only, sure I need it, but it was sacred. It was my parents' money. Not money, it was not even. I had some gold coins, I had some jewelry, and I don't even know if I had maybe very little money, but I had those things. My mother would say, well, you keep it, you have it, because you will be the one to survive. And so I didn't show up to him. I didn't want him to ask me for money or whatever. I knew I don't want to give it to him. Then he took all the important people on the truck back to Bodzachów, and we were left like 20 people or something, that we were not, before this guy, this German guy, went to Bodzachów and brought identification cards that we are working for Bodzachów, that we are legal.
And you worked when you were there
work.
for 2 weeks?
No, we didn't work. But it was like a fiction, that fictive. And I didn't ask him to bring me a permit. So he came to me before he left. The next morning he was to leave. He came to me and said, why didn't you ask me I should bring you a permit? So I said, well, I know they wouldn't give it to me, so I didn't ask you. Well, there would be a chance that we go back and I will go back to the ghetto. Anyways, he said, he came back and brought a permit for me. He went to the office there and said he needs a permit for me, and they were very much against it. I think they already punished my father for it. That I asked somebody to do something, not them, but I was innocent. Then 2-3 days later, after they took away the people, the Schutzpolizei came 5 o'clock in the morning, And they were segregating the people who have a permit or not have a permit. They took away 11 people away to
those without the permits.
Without the permit. And we went back to Botzerhof with this German guy who was our supervisor. Okay, and over there I was the next day I went back to the ghetto. My parents were, my mother had a small apartment in the ghetto, not ours.
Back in Ostroviecz.
Back in Ostroviecz. My father was working still in Botzerhof, but he was going back and forth. And we stayed, and my sister, Rivka, did not come back from the attic. After 2 weeks, when the Aussiedlung was over, she went with another girl, an older girl, down to bring some water and to see how it is in the ghetto, if it's safe to go down from the attic. And while she was there, she was trying to go back, but when she saw somebody suspicious that he might see where she is going back, and she might show the attic that there are so many Jews, she didn't go back, and she was going back and forth until there was a truck looking for Jews which are without work, and they took her with the other girl to probably to Treblinki. And she didn't go back. It was like after the Aussiedlung she could have survived, but due to this circumstances she was taken to Treblinka. So my mother was with a little girl, the Ida, and father was living, and I came and I was with them. My sister was in Radom, and we stayed in the ghetto. My mother did not have a job, and I had a job with some factory outside of the ghetto that was making paper with tar. It was a Jewish factory that a Volksdeutsche, a Polish guy that was of German origin, that he took it over, and I worked there. My mother was trying to do something. She was cooking in this small apartment, and there were people, some coming over to have some lunch, and she was earning money. And I was there in this place, which was outside of the ghetto. There was another auction, I think it was in 43. But that was a time where the ghetto should be liquidated, and there was no means to hide somewhere, because after it there was no more ghetto. So this cousin, this chief of the police, he said, if I want to work in the kitchen in the ghetto, I said yes, because this place where I am working is not safe. They will take away the people that are working there.
What was your job there?
In this sewing place, we were sewing with another guy that was a tailor. I was just helping him for the Polish, for the director of the firm, for the owner of the firm, for his family.
You sat near the sewing machine?
Yeah. I was sewing by hand, whatever. So, what was I saying? I forgot.
That he asked you if you want to work in the kitchen?
So I said, okay, because this place is not safe. And I thought, I don't care if the place is safe or not, but my mother will be, instead of me, they have my name that I am working in the kitchen, and I won't be there. My mother, when they will call my name, she will be me. But I had to take away the child from her, because with the child there was no way to hide anything. It was finished. So I talked to that guy in the factory. There were Poles working together with us Jews, a few. It was a ugly-looking man, and I asked him if he could take my sister for 1 or 2 nights, and then he will bring her back to the factory there. He said, okay. I said, I will give you money. And I was still I went to the ghetto. I took my sister. I had an appointment with him like 6 o'clock in the evening. It was still light. And we left the ghetto. We went out when the policeman looked away, so we just went through the gate. And it was outside of the ghetto, quite maybe half a kilometer. And I saw the guy approaching us, and I knew that my sister won't go with him because he looked so ugly. He had such funny beard. So I said, look, this guy is approaching us, that's him. But I cannot stay here with you, I have to go away. And I ran away. It was a street and I hid in a gate, and I looked through eine Spalte. I looked what happening, and I see him approaching her, and he took her and he went home. The next day, he comes to the factory, and he brought her back, because his wife said that there are people which lived with us in the same backyard. There were many houses where we lived, and that they will recognize her. So then I took her and put her in a place where there were those papers, the tur and all that. And I said the day it was over already, because this was the day when they made another people took to the barracks, to the Arbeitslager, where the factory was, and next to the factory were those barracks, those to live there, and that was the working camp. The people that worked there with me, we were 15 altogether on this place. They were saying I endangered the whole place, that I brought a child here, and she is hidden.
She was at the time 9 years old?
It was 43, she was 10 years old. Well, what can I do? I still was not, I didn't know what to do with her. I couldn't go. So I went to this German guy, and I said, look, this is the situation. The people were already there in the labor camp, and I was here with this child. And I said to him, what shall I do? I can go with her to the labor camp. Maybe you give me somebody and I will go there. So he told me, you go to the there was a working place that they had 300, 400 Jews in a brick factory, which was called Jäger. And I went to Jäger with somebody, And I stayed there and I waited until they go to the working camp, to the labor camp, and I could go in. So I went in with my sister to the labor camp. My parents were there, my father, my mother. And I left it there and I went back to the place where I was working. My mother was safe because she was working in the kitchen instead of me. And the child I was took out of the ghetto, and that was it. And that's how we stayed until from 1933, I think, late spring,
43.
until 43, until August, 3rd of August 44. We went to Auschwitz.
There was a labor camp inside the brick factory?
No, outside the brick factory, in the field. It was an empty field where they were built barracks. You call barracks, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And we stayed there. We had barracks for men, separate women.
So you were with your mother and your younger sister, Ida?
Yeah, I was there. And my father was in another barrack for men.
And did you work there?
Yes, I worked in the kitchen. I was peeling potatoes. My mother also worked in the kitchen.
That's the
and
best.
I was washing laundry twice a week also for them.
But that's the best job, to work in the kitchen, no?
Well, we didn't cook. We just went, I was in the preparing for the
Yeah,
kitchen.
but you know, when people were hungry, they took the potato peels and put it on the oven or something.
This was the camp in our own city. We were not hungry. We did not even eat the food that was working, that
How
was
come?
cooked. Because we had some money still. I still could sell some things that we had, and we had money. My mother was buying food. People.
But at that time you couldn't go outside, so someone had to come.
Yes, you could go outside. You could go outside because you went to this Jäger place where they were working. It was in the middle of the city where there were no Jews, just Gentiles. And we could go with the transport.
On the way from the camp to the factory.
Camp to the Jäger Platzówka, it's called, the place. We could go and we could go away from there, and I could make some errands for myself.
You were the one responsible for the barter, selling and buying?
Yeah. It was not such a big production once in a while. But so we managed. My mother was cooking with very improvised, like a few bricks. In the middle was fire, and she managed to cook for us.
So you could give your food from
we didn't take
the camp to someone else?
No, from the kitchen we probably took the portion of bread and the portion of jam or whatever. But to eat the soup from the kitchen we didn't do.
What was your job there?
Well, I was washing twice a week. I was in the laundry washing. And then every day I was in the kitchen.
You said you worked in the kitchen and in the laundry, so it means that you worked for the camp, not for the factory.
For the camp, yes. I was once sent to the factory by some I don't know, he was also a big shot in the camp. He was, and I was I don't know how you call it in English, where they make steel out of iron, the stoves, very hot stoves, Martinen it's called, I think, with the big big tool that you put it in the fire, you take it out, and then you press, and this is red, and you can make a form, whatever there is. But the German director of the factory saw me, and he said, "What? The girl is working at the oven. That's not good. That's not right. Send me back to the camp."
All the time, you almost had nothing to do with the Germans.
No.
You didn't see them. You didn't talk to them.
No. We had a
you weren't beaten by them.
No, no. We had a Werkschutzführer that when he came to this camp, we were hiding and didn't want to see him, and so because he was beating some people, and so, you know, like they tell about Plaszow, and so. But it was very rare.
Unlike other people at that time, I suppose you didn't understand German because you didn't know Yiddish.
I knew Yiddish. My parents were talking among each other Yiddish. I understood everything in Yiddish. Yes.
So you could understand German?
Sure, I did.
What did your young sister do in the camp? She stayed in the barrack the whole day till you came back?
Yeah. She was like 2-3 girls were her age that also, under certain circumstances, managed to come in. They had them in the factory, in the big factory. It was a factory that was manufacturing the trains also, the locomotive of the train. And she was shoveling sand from the truck down on the place where they needed it. So she was doing something.